History is full of patterns, but sometimes it throws us a curveball. In 1898, author Morgan Robertson wrote a novella titled Futility, or The Wreck of the Titan. It was about a massive British passenger ship called the Titan that hits an iceberg in the North Atlantic and sinks. 14 years later, in 1912, the Titanic, a real British passenger ship, struck an iceberg and sank in eerily similar fashion. Both ships were described as unsinkable, both lacked enough lifeboats, and both sank in April. The level of detail is chilling. Coincidence or prophecy? This is one of the most famous historical coincidences. Abraham Lincoln was elected in 1860. John F. Kennedy was elected in 1960. Exactly 100 years apart. Both were assassinated on a Friday in the presence of their wives. Lincoln was shot in Ford's Theatre. Kennedy was shot in a Ford Lincoln car. Both assassins, John Wilkes Booth and Lee Harvey Oswald, were known by 3 names with 15 letters in total. Booth ran from a theatre and was caught in a warehouse. Oswald ran from a warehouse and was caught in a theatre. It's enough to make anyone do a double take. In 1893, Mexican General Antonio López de Santa Anna lost his leg in battle. That leg, oddly enough, was later dug up and given a funeral. But here's an even weirder coincidence involving bullets and fate. In 1883, a man named Henry Ziegland broke up with his girlfriend, who tragically took her own life. Her brother, enraged, tried to kill Henry, shooting him in the head. Believing he had succeeded, the brother took his own life, but Henry survived. The bullet had only grazed him and lodged in a tree behind him. Years later, Henry tried to remove the tree using dynamite. The explosion propelled the bullet out of the tree, and it struck and killed Henry Ziegland. Some call it fate, some call it the strangest ricochet in history. In the United States, 2 identical twins were separated at birth and adopted by different families. Both families named their sons James. Both boys grew up to become police officers. Both married women named Linda, divorced, and remarried women named Betty. They each had a son, one named James Allen, the other James Allen, and both owned dogs named Toy. When they finally met at age 39, their lives had been uncannily parallel. How much of who we are is shaped by genetics or fate? Napoleon was born in 1769, Hitler in 1889. A difference of 120 years. Napoleon rose to power in 1804, Hitler in 1933. Again, 129 years apart. Napoleon invaded Russia in 1812, Hitler in 1941. Another 129-year gap. Both lost when they reached Moscow in winter, and both fell from power shortly afterward. Though the ideology and context were entirely different, the timeline has an eerie echo. Coincidence, perhaps, but for historians, the parallel is undeniable. When construction began on the Hoover Dam in the 1930s, the first man to die was a surveyor named J.G. Tierney, who drowned on December 20th, 1922. Exactly 13 years later to the day, December 20th, 1935. The last man to die working on the dam was Patrick Tierney, J.G. Tierney's son. First and last fatality, same family, same date. Some stories are just too strange for fiction. In 1975, a man riding a moped in Bermuda was struck and killed by a taxi. 1 year later, his brother, riding the same moped on the same street, was also struck and killed by the same taxi carrying the same passenger, driven by the same driver. Lightning may not strike twice, but in this case, tragedy did. In 1784, an Austrian monk named Abbot Franz was studying a rare medieval manuscript when he noticed something odd. It referenced a duel between 2 monks over the correct method of writing the letter G. This wasn't a metaphor, it was a real sword fight, and apparently one of the monks died from his wounds. A battle to the death over a letter. Proof that even in history, the pen and sword often clash. In the late 1800s, King Umberto I of Italy went to dine at a restaurant in Monza. The owner of the restaurant looked exactly like him. Upon talking, they found out. They were both born on the same day in the same town. They both married women named Margherita. The restaurant was opened the same day King Umberto was crowned. The next day, the restaurant owner was shot and killed. Hours later, King Umberto was assassinated at a public event. History repeating itself in the same body. Mark Twain was born in 1835, the same year Halley's Comet passed by Earth. He famously predicted, "I came in with Halley's Comet and I expect to go out with it." Sure enough, he died in 1910, the day after the comet returned. One of literature's greats, entering and exiting the world in sync with a celestial visitor. So what do we make of all these bizarre coincidences? Some are mathematical probability, others just plain spooky, but they all remind us that history isn't just dates and battles. It's full of mysteries, twists, and echoes across time. If you enjoyed this trip down history's strangest lane, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the past. And let us know in the comments which historical coincidence blew your mind the most. Until next time, stay curious.